Hi everyone, and welcome to 2025's Horror Reel Roundup. For 2025, I have 60 films to discuss with you, but before we begin, I have just a couple of disclaimers. The time spent with each film will vary greatly, so I do apologize if any film that I talk about today is one of your favorites and it just doesn't get that much time with me. Also, any controversy surrounding any film will not be discussed. This is a ranking purely on the film itself. All films have been ranked on an A through F grading scale, with an S tier being the highest and a D- being the lowest. And while I am ranking these films, none of these will be ranked based on their technical abilities or how good of a film they are, just based on how much I liked them and my opinions. Also, these are my opinions, and while they are subject to change, these are and were my opinions at this time. And lastly, timestamps will be in the description of the video for you to skip around to any of the films that you would like to hear about, whether it be because of spoilers or you just want to hear about a specific movie. The timestamps will be there. Comment below your thoughts as we go, whether they be positive or negative. I'd love to have a discussion with you. Now, with all of those disclaimers out of the way, I have one last one, and that is your spoiler warning. Major plot points and any and all of the things about any of the movies that I talk about can and will be talked about. So if you don't care for spoilers, you can ignore this warning. If you do, please heed this warning. I will be talking about major plot points from the remainder of the video. Now let's begin 2025's Horror Reel Roundup in the D tier. We're going to be starting in the D- tier with Fear Street Prom Queen. Fear Street Prom Queen, unfortunately, was my least favorite movie of the year, not even just horror in general. It is not a Fear Street movie, in my opinion. It does not encapsulate anything that the original trilogy does. Honestly, just a really basic and not very welcoming slasher movie. And I love slasher movies, which is really interesting because it's really hard for me to hate one, and I just really don't connect with this movie. It is not, I'm going to keep saying it's not Fear Street, and which is the main problem. I think that original trilogy just set the precedent so high, and this movie does not hit any of it. Boring characters, a really boring twist that anyone could have seen coming, and I just did not have a good time with it, and that's why I have it ranked as my very least favorite movie of the year. Next, we have The Ritual, which is also in the D- tier. This is just another really basic exorcism film, and I just don't really care for them that much. This specific subgenre of exorcism movies is really hard to do differently. I think there was 2 last year, maybe even 3 exorcism movies last year that I just didn't connect with, and then this one is just adding on to that list. It's really, like I said, it's really hard for me to connect with an exorcism film. There's only one really good one, and it was the original movie, and it's hard to do something different in this subgenre, and they just don't really... They try, but it doesn't work for me. It feels like an episode of The Office, and I don't like The Office. The camera does not stop moving, and it's really distracting. Even when a shot couldn't just sit there, it doesn't, and it's really frustrating. Al Pacino and Dan Stevens are both in this movie, and I feel like actors of this caliber could have been given something else, like genuinely something else. The only real positive that I have is that Abigail Cowan, who plays Emma, is giving it her all, and she does really, really well in the role. I just don't really care for anything else in the movie. Next, we have the D ranking in the D tier, and starting with that, I have Drop, and I'm just going to read from my notes that I have. I haven't felt less while watching a movie. It was just overall below average. None of the actors were too compelling, and the plot was a decent mystery whodunit, but it was very, very, very forgettable. I have next to nothing to say. Next, we have Rosario. This is just another movie that I don't really have much to say. It's another really bland occult story, and there's not much going on. None of the characters are very compelling and that I even want to connect with. And not only that, I don't really want to, it's really hard to. The story isn't there for me. I don't really care. And while watching the movie, I was just expecting something to happen, and then nothing really does. It's got some decent scares in there, but then the reveal happens, and it's almost like I knew it already, but at the same time, I didn't, which makes them both kind of interesting, but also like disappointing in a way. But I don't know. I just didn't really care too much for Rosario. Next movie we have is Match. This is the only Tubi original on here, and it's just meh. It's got some decent stuff. It's extremely gory, and it has these really cool practical effects and makeup, and all of that is really impressive, but everything else is just not there for me. But other than that, though, it feels like Barbarian and Fresh like combined, but it's like a light version of that. It has some really fucking dumb characters that I just couldn't care any less for, and the film is really just shocking. There's one specific scene where a mother is jerking off her own son, and it's supposed to be this moment that's like, oh my God, that's so fucking gross. But I've seen worse. And so okay, hold on. That makes it seem like I'm fairly desensitized to this stuff, so that didn't really do much for me. I could understand if someone doesn't watch this stuff very often and how it could probably fuck with them a little bit. I just have seen a lot of things in horror movies, and this is just not one that's gonna like shock me personally. It's gross and it's fucking weird as shit, but it just didn't really do anything for me. It's like it's fairly grotesque, but I mean it's alright. Which is interesting because I'm not going to say that was the reason I watched the movie, but there was some word of mouth about like a really disgusting scene, and I'm inclined to think that was it, because nothing else really compares to that other than the level of gore that's in the movie. I also found myself checking the runtime constantly while watching the movie. It reminded me of earlier in the year when I was trying to watch Hellraiser Revelations, and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, okay, we're gonna get to the end, and we're moving along. I'm glad this movie's almost over. I checked the time, and I was only 20 minutes into the movie, and I paused it and did something else for a couple hours because that movie was god awful. The pacing was sucked. Match. Yeah, it's not the best sign when I have to constantly check the runtime to see how much longer I have to sit through a movie. I don't think Match was bad per se. I just think it was incredibly underwhelming for the word of mouth that I heard. And maybe my expectations were a little too high, but you know, it's just what it is sometimes. Next, we're gonna be moving to our D+ movies, and I'm gonna start with Locked. Locked is another one of those movies where I just don't have much to say. It's starring Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins, and they could have done so much more with two actors of this caliber. I mean, the entire movie is just them both in two separate places talking to each other. So there's like no chemistry. I don't care for either of these characters. I don't care for the story. The only like redeeming factor is that it's Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins. If it's any two other actors, it's just not a good movie. Not that I think this is a good movie, but it's way less compelling than whatever this is. Yeah, I have like nothing else to say. Locked is fine. I didn't really say much about what the movie is. Bill Skarsgård is locked in a car that he tried to steal. And Anthony Hopkins is remotely activating like heat and then coolant stuff. It's a commentary on like rich people versus poor people. But I just don't. It doesn't do it very well, and I just don't really care. Next movie we have is Hell of a Summer, and this movie fucking pisses me off. Let me go over some positives first. The cold open is great. It hooked me, which is awesome. I think the comedy lands. All of the cast and characters are fun to watch. Some to root for, some to root against. That's about it. This is an R-rated slasher that shows you nothing, and it pisses me off so much. We have in our hands here an R-rated slasher, and you can do so much with that. You can do so much with an R rating without getting that NC-17 and pretty much locking it from everybody. But the problem that I have here is that the PG-13 rating exists for a reason, and if you're gonna, you can get away with some couple of curse words. You can get away with some level of gore in PG-13. You can keep it mild. This entire movie is mild. There's only one bit of like real like action, and it's behind a curtain with some really cool shadow work, which is awesome. But because it's not rated PG-13, no one, the audience that this movie is for can't come see it. And that just pisses me off. If you make a movie like this, in my opinion, and you're not going to show anything, drop that rating so that everyone is able to watch it. I feel like this is a really, really interesting and good introduction to the horror genre. And I feel like it could have did so much more. It was rated PG-13, but it's not. It is rated R, and it shows me nothing. And I hate it so much because it's a slasher movie, and slashers are all about that. Show me something new. Show me a different way to mutilate somebody. That's what the genre's for. And I don't know. I feel like it doesn't do much, even with the tropes. And I feel like the twist villains aren't even that really good. It's just, I think this is perfect introductory, but it doesn't allow for that. Like, its rating literally doesn't allow for it. It's very upsetting. But it is a slasher, so I can't hate it on it too much. And that's why I have it rated in the D+ tier. Same thing with our next film, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Know What You Did Last Summer is another slasher that's just pretty all right. That original movie is like peak 90s slasher. It's got everything you'd want. And this movie does that pretty well, especially like the opening. That dude, like the first half of I Know What You Did Last Summer, or at least like the first third of the movie, it's all set up and it's so beautifully written and so picture perfect. This movie doesn't do that as well because it's really hard to live up to that, but it still does it enough, and it keeps me engaged and it gets me connected to these characters. And it's a really pretty fine legacy sequel all the way up until the killer is revealed, and it erases everything that I just said because it makes no sense and it ruins the movie for me. Like, genuinely, it doesn't make any sense from a character perspective or from a writing perspective, and it just fucking baffles me that that's the direction that they went in. And I'm not going to say any more other than that Tyreek Withers is in this, and I fucking love Tyreek Withers and Freddie Prinze Jr. Love them both. I want you to go watch it for yourself and realize why I'm so pissed off about it. Because I don't want to spoil that for anybody. But that does conclude our D tier. So we're going to move on to our C minuses now. Starting with The Home. This is another movie I'm just kind of going to read my notes for because I don't have much to say. And like I said, I have minimal to say about The Home. It's not the most engaging movie ever, and Pete Davidson isn't very charismatic, but he does do enough in the role. The whole nursing home shenanigans and twist is creative, at least, and the last 15 minutes of pure brutality make up for the first 90 minutes of whatever this movie is. I think the premise is pretty interesting. This isn't the only like nursing home horror movie we got this year, which is really weird, but it's fine. I think the last 15 minutes of the movie carry the weight of the movie just because of how like okay it is. We're following Pete Davidson, who is a comedy actor, and he does well in that role, but I can't really take him too seriously, and I don't think he's giving me enough here anyway to make me care. And so that's why I have it rated as a C minus. Moving on, we have Abraham's Boys, and this is another movie I was just kind of disappointed with. It's beautiful. The score is awesome. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. This movie is gorgeous. And I'm usually a vanity guy, which is really interesting because this movie left me wanting more. Like the direction is great. The acting is great. I just don't really care for what they're doing in the movie. Like, the story just doesn't really grasp me. There's a couple of twists and turns here and there that are decent enough. All of the action and acting directing is great. I just don't connect with it. I use the word connect a lot because that's the way I determine if it's a movie that I'm going to like and to want to keep around. And so this is just a movie that I don't know, I just didn't really, like I said, connect with too much. And that's why I have it rated as a C minus for the year. Next, we have The Shrouds. This is an incredibly difficult movie to talk about due to how personal it is. You know, it's a commentary on grief, and it's got some really pretty decent acting, some really good dialogue moments. But like I said, this is another one of those movies I literally can't connect with. I've never lost someone that close to me. And so watching a movie that is literally about the death of someone that you're like so tight with and so connected to, it's just really hard for me to grasp these themes that are going on. And so this movie may as well be an S tier, but because I don't really understand, I'm more inclined to put it in this C minus range for me personally. But this isn't really a movie that I care to rank. I think it's good. Like, I think it's like a generally good. The opening credits are really interesting. I think just everything going on is really interesting. All of the cemetery stuff is really interesting. The watching your loved one decompose essentially is a really interesting way to look at it. But once again, it's just something I literally can't connect with, and so I do have it rated down here at the C minus tier. Next movie I have in our C ranking is Shelby Oaks, and this is one of my more disappointing movies of the year. It's sufficiently spooky and it's evil, but it feels like it was written by 3 different people with 3 really cool ideas that just don't really mesh together. The entire mockumentary opening, like the first 20 minutes, are so cool, and I think that portion of the movie has so much potential to be great. But then we move on to like this fucking 45-minute long like investigative movie where like literally nothing happens. Oh my God, it's just near boring, and I'm just constantly waiting and waiting and waiting. And then we get to the third act with all of this like kidnapping stuff and this woman and the old woman in the house, and it's just like I just don't like care. Like that the beginning of the movie got me so hooked, and I really want to know what happened to the sister. And then what ends up being true is just so underwhelming. I think a lot of the stuff in here is cool and conceptually just like really fucking awesome. But then none of it really comes through together. And it's so upsetting because this movie was marketed so well, and you can tell that it's made with such love and care, and that everything is just so tightly put together. But it's just not for me, and that's why I do have it rated here in the C tier. Next in the C tier is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. This is one of the more fun movies of the year. It's really just introductory children's horror, and I love that for that subgenre so much. It gives all of these kids and young teens an introduction to this beloved horror genre, and I think it does all of those like infancy tropes very well. You know, I mean, there's a scene where something like a fridge door opens, and then everyone knows that there's gonna be something back there, and then they close the fridge, and then boom, jump scare, and it's really cool because it's very predictable and it scares, but not for someone that not for a child, and that's awesome. And I love the children's subgenre. I want everyone to enjoy horror, and most kids are sheltered from it, but I think these introductory movies are perfect. But watching this just really made me realize how much I long for an R-rated analog FNAF adaptation. I think it would be so cool. I think that 5 minutes of Josh Hutcherson playing Mike Schmidt, who is a normal person, playing Five Nights at Freddy's, it's so cool. He's just playing the game in real life, and it's so cool. I like that 5 minutes makes me want more of that, and I hope Five Nights at Freddy's 3 does some of that, which I am actually really, really excited for. Also, we probably get more Skeet Ulrich and more Matthew Lillard, who I love. Josh Hutcherson playing Mike Schmidt, who is a normal person. And I just can't wait. But the one thing that's really fucking bothering me, though, is that the ending of this movie sucks. It blows, dude. Like, the last 10 minutes is just, like, genuinely watching it, I'm just like, what the fuck? Why? There's just, like, it's like Avengers Endgame with the FNAF characters. And it's such a weird thing. But I do love the marionette. I think that character is fucking scary as shit. And I enjoyed a majority of this movie. But, it's also just okay. It's just really fun. And that's why I do have it rated down here at the C tier. Dream Eater was the definition of middle of the road for me. It deals with the phenomena of parasomnia, and I feel like when we're in those portions of the movie, it's really, really good, and it's really well done. But everything else is just so bleh. It's like a big pile of bleh. I don't care. Like, it's another thing. I don't care about this couple at all. And I think it's mainly due to the dialogue that they have while they're like just talking with each other. None of it seems authentic, and it also just kind of sucks. I don't know if it's written or if it's all improv, but man, it's borderline insufferable. I'm sorry for being so harsh. I had the same thing with the dialogue. I had the same issue with Jimmy and Stiggs, which I'll talk about later. But at least Jimmy and Stiggs is like really fucking cool to look at. Like, that whole movie is gorgeous. This movie is just all right to look at. It's also got some interesting Lovecraftian horror, which is awesome. But then they decide to show too much, and it just looks so silly. And it also gives an explanation for what's going on. And I'm a big fan of not getting the full story. I would love to just guess. I want to make my own assumptions, and it helps me engage as well. But yeah, I mean, the found footage nature is really cool, and I think it works fairly well. I can't like a movie that's like 70% bleh and 30% fucking awesome. And that's why I have it like rated in the C tier. It's a perfect middle ground. Next we have Until Dawn, and I'm just not really a big fan of video game movie adaptations, specifically when your video game is basically a movie anyway. Like, that original Until Dawn game is basically just an immersive movie that you're playing yourself, and it's really cool. And this movie is none of that. I don't have too much to say. There's just basically a big time loop thing when the game isn't that. The game is like a survivalist like type deal thing. It's a survivalist choose your own adventure game, And this movie is like a Groundhog Day type deal, and they don't mesh together. I don't understand why the Until Dawn IP is even attached to this, because they're not the same. The only portion of this movie that I liked is in the middle, when there's this montage of a bunch of mini movies that I could be watching instead, but I'm not. And it's really upsetting because those looked and were just so much better than what this actual movie was. It's got some pretty decent actors in it though, and I feel like it looks pretty cool. Just the premise and the concept is whatever, and I genuinely believe that they had this idea and then they thought, you know what would be a great idea? Let's throw the title Until Dawn on there and let's see what happens. Let's throw, sprinkle in a little bit of game stuff here. It doesn't really work for me, and that's why I have it rated on the C tier. Hard Eyes is just another, basic slasher that released this year. It's got a really cool cold open. It has an interesting twist there at the end, but I mean, everything else is just, like I said, fairly basic. It's a slasher movie. It follows the slasher formula. I think it does pretty good. The Hard Eyes killer is pretty cool. I like the mask design. I like that the weapons that they use. Like I said, the cold open is really, really fucking cool. And funny. Mason Gooding and Olivia Holt do a really good job. They're compelling. They keep me connected at least. But I mean, other than that, it's just a fairly basic 90-minute slasher. Next, we're moving to our C pluses, and starting with Death of a Unicorn. And I don't have much to say about Death of a Unicorn. It's a monster movie with unicorns, which is really cool conceptually. But in execution, I just think it's okay. The cast is really great, actually, except Jenna Ortega isn't really doing anything. I don't really like Paul Rudd all that too much. Will Poulter's awesome, but I think they contribute enough to keep me engaged, but I'm just constantly waiting for any unicorn stuff, because all the unicorn stuff is really cool. And I also just think using the mythical creature of the unicorn as like a killer is really cool conceptually as well. But I do have a different monster movie rated higher than this one for the year that I think a couple people will probably be a little upset about, but I just had way more fun with it, and I'll get to in a second. But yeah, Death of the Unicorn also has some commentary about humans discovering things and then putting a price tag on it to make as much money as possible, and I think that's pretty interesting. But I mean, everything else is just okay. I think all the kills are pretty cool. Pretty decent monster movie with some slasher elements, and that's why I have it rated in the C+. And then lastly, in our C tier, I have Companion. I was very, very excited for Companion until I accidentally, or not even accidentally, I was almost forced to watch the second trailer for it. And in that trailer, it basically just spoils the twist of the movie. And spoiler alert, Sophie Thatcher is not a human. She's a robot, an android. And that just kind of put me out of it. I hate spoilers, like genuinely, and I hate when trailers do that. And that's why I tend to steer clear of them. I don't watch trailers unless I explicitly have to, or I'm just exposed to them too much. Nothing was really too mind-blowing in the movie specifically, but it was fun enough to keep me engaged throughout the entire runtime. Sophie Thatcher is a fucking star. I love her so much. She was great in this, and she was also really great in Heretic, and I'm so excited to see her in so many more movies. I'm pretty sure she was in Maxine as well, but I might be wrong on that. But yeah, Companion was okay. I just think, oh my god, I think that twist is beautiful without it being ruined in the trailer. But other than that, I do have Companion rated as a C+ for the year. Moving on to the B- tier, I have Megan 2.0. This was an absolute genre shift in the Megan franchise that came just a little too early. This is not a horror movie, by the way, but it's in a horror franchise technically, so I'm talking about it. It's basically just sci-fi, like action comedy at this point. I feel like we could have gotten at least one or two more movies of Megan being scary before we moved to this. But you know what? I'm for it. It's really fun. There's nothing too crazy. It's just like a really fun movie. It's just Megan having a good time, running around, doing her thing. She's in multiple different bodies this time. Like Allison Williams is in the movie. I love Allison Williams, of course. And then just the character of Megan is just really, really compelling and really fun to watch. I love listening to her. I love watching what she'll do next. And while this movie isn't like great, I had a fun enough time to rank it in the B- tier. Next up, I have The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Last year after Long Legs came out, I realized that I really need to watch Micah Monroe in more movies. And once again, Micah Monroe in more movies, please. She's got a movie coming out. I believe it's a Colleen Hoover adaptation with Tyreek Withers. Gonna be sick. She was in It Follows, Long Legs, and now this. She is incredible in this movie. She is so compelling, so engaging, and she's so fucking scary, and it's awesome. But the movie itself has some pretty cool things, but also some pretty alright things. It's okay. I love the setup of a babysitter derailing a family. I think that's a pretty cool concept, and it gives me a sense of unease as it's really unpredictable, but it's kind of predictable in its unpredictability. Paulie's character, I know, isn't like right. Like, I know she isn't a good, and that's the predictable part. But what's unpredictable is what she's going to do. Like, I know she's going to do something crazy, but I don't know like what it is exactly. And it's always just something fucking nuts. The whole film is also littered with mirror shots and like shots through windows. And I really love that form of cinematography. So like that also kept me engaged. It always had me wondering, ooh, when are they going to do this again? And why are they going to do this again? And then one other thing is the twist in this movie made me change my mind about how I felt about like 5 different characters. But I still don't know how I'm supposed to feel, because we're supposed to feel bad for Paulie, but then she's also still really evil. But is she actually evil? And then is this mother not actually evil, but is she evil? It's really fucking confusing to me. But, you know, overall, solid drama thriller. And Micah Monroe is being villainy, which is really cool. I need more of her, please, in so many other things. House on Eden is just a really fun spook fest of a movie. It's really short, about an hour and 18 minutes. And it starts out pretty slow, but once you actually get to the house on Eden, it picks up quite a bit, and it doesn't really stop either. It's got a little bit of everything from paranormal to supernatural to even some cult stuff, which was really interesting towards the end. And it's got this found footage style, so naturally it needs to be convincing. And I think these 3 actors do a good enough job of convincing me of their personalities that they're portraying. Not only the characters themselves, but the people that they're portraying in the film, because they're YouTubers and they're being themselves behind the camera, and then on camera they're playing, you know, they're pepped up personalities. And I feel like all of it all kept me engaged enough to want to continue watching it. And it was really interesting. I wouldn't say that I particularly loved the movie, but I don't have much negative to say about the movie, which is always a good sign. And I also think it's just a really like fun, like perfect Halloween movie to just throw on during the season, and also just a fun movie to like spook your friends with at like a sleepover or something. But yeah, I do have it rated as a B- for the year. Next, we have A Clown in the Cornfield, which is once again another standard slasher, but it's got a really cool twist because it's got, spoiler, multiple villains, like a shit ton of villains, and it's really cool. Friendo is scary. All of the Friendos are scary. I love a small like Midwestern town. Is it Midwestern? I don't know. I love a small town like story. I love that setting. Something always is happening, and it's straight up just dumb fun slasher at its peak. It's got some really fun kills, got some really funny moments, and just an overall really fun time. That's why I have it rated as a B- for the year. Next, we have Bambi: The Reckoning, and this is the monster movie that I liked more than Death of a Unicorn. There is something endearing about it, and I can't put my finger on it, and I still can't put my finger on it. It's just, you know, an overtly cheesy monster movie that just so happens to be Bambi. It's really fucking fun. It's made by the same people that did the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey movies, and so I just expected that this movie to be like schlop, but it's not. It's got a pretty interesting mother-son story going on, in my opinion, and it's also just got a giant Bambi wreaking havoc on everybody, and it is so cool and so compelling. And I don't know, I just like my monster movies, and this one does it really well. And this Bambi's fucking huge, by the way. I also really love the opening animation. I liked it a lot. It's pretty interesting. It introduced me to the movie, which was really sweet. But yeah, I don't have it rated too high because, you know, it's not a great movie or anything, but it's still just a really, really fun monster movie. And so yeah, that's why I have it rated down here at the B- tier. Starting in the B tier, I have The Rule of Jenny Penn. And this is probably the most interesting movie conceptually that I watched this year. It's about this man who's played by John Lithgow, who is terrorizing his fellow nursing home people with this puppet that he uses to berate them, embarrass them, and just straight up harass them with. And it is one of the most compelling performances that I've seen in a long time. He's doing such a good job. He makes me hate him so fucking much. And yeah, it's just really fucking weird. And I love that. I love weird. Once again, just gotta praise John Lithgow. He's fucking incredible and terrifying in this movie. If I was an old person watching this, I'd be scared as shit. Like being forced into a nursing home that I don't want to be in. And having to deal with him. It's really cool. I don't want to say too much else because I feel like just conceptually alone, this is one that you'll want to go and not even just blind to. Just hearing what it's about, you want to just see it. And I'll leave it at that. And that's why I have Rule of Jenny Penn rated as a B for the year. I also have The Housemaid rated as a B tier for this year. It's the most recent movie that I watched, and it's a very entertaining game of plot twists. I've never read the book, but I had a really good time with this one. It's really fun. Amanda Seyfried is fucking incredible. Anytime she's on screen, I'm just like, give me more. I need to know what you're going to do next. And she's incredible. But then also, Brandon Sklenar is also just really incredible. I liked him so much more in this than in Drop. He plays like a nobody in Drop. In this, he's a somebody. And he's so fun to just root for, but then he's also so fun to fucking hate because he just fills into that role so well. I think he's so much more compelling as a villain, and he's just really fucking scary. I think he's more scary than when Amanda Seyfried is being villainy. The only thing that really bogs this movie down is that it's really long. I feel like it could have cut at least 20 minutes out of this. But then also, Sydney Sweeney never really feels like she wants to be acting. And so her performances never really carry for me. They're just she's just kind of there. That's fine. Maybe that's just the vibe I'm getting. Maybe she actually loves her job. That's absolutely a possibility. But watching this, I just didn't get that vibe at all. She's not really doing much, but she is kind of funny towards the end of the movie. And I think she's doing a well enough job to keep me engaged. And that's why it's rated down here at the B tier. Next movie I have is Opus. And this is one of the movies that I liked a lot more than my peers did. Firstly, the music. It's incredible. John Malkovich is doing all of the performing, and he made 3 bangers, dude. Straight up, 3 banger songs. They're really, genuinely incredible. I like to listen to them, not even while watching the movie, just in general. I think John Malkovich is doing an incredible job as this music cult leader, which is really cool. I love the setting on this compound. They got some really cool sets. I love the opening sequence of this movie. It really engages you. The movie is brutal and unsettling. There's one specific scene that I like to harpen back to. It's this woman tries to sit in a beanbag chair, and she feels uncomfortable. And earlier, I believe she tried to move it, and it was just really heavy for some reason. A couple minutes later, they open the beanbag, and it's just this person in it, and it's really fucking crazy. It's really cool. But some things that I just kind of bog it down a little bit is that it feels fairly rushed, especially towards the end. The last 15 minutes, there's just boom, 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 boom. This is one exception to my rule of explanations. I feel like I just needed a little more. The movie just kind of ends as well, and it doesn't really give you much to go on while it's ending. And so you're kind of just left with, I don't know, I was left with a not disappointing taste, but something similar to that. But I loved a majority of it. Like I said, I liked it more than a majority of my peers did. But I had a good time. Love John Malkovich. Next movie I have is Hurry Up Tomorrow. The music is great. I think Jenna Ortega, Barry Keoghan, and The Weeknd are doing a really good job. I'm gonna take this for a second and just say something about The Weeknd. I think a lot of people don't like his performance in this, and in The Idol as well. But I like them both. I think he's doing a good job. I think he's playing the characters. I like to think about that one scene that went viral of him telling Jenna Ortega's character to shut the fuck up. And I find that so funny. I find just that entire scene genuinely well acted. I think he's doing a good job. The only thing really that bogs this movie down is that there's not really much of a plot. It's just kind of things happening. There's a subplot with Jenna Ortega's character that I just don't really understand. Fairly alright movie. I liked it quite a bit, especially while watching the movie. I had a good time. Also, if you don't like The Weeknd's music, you just shouldn't watch this movie. You're not gonna like it. You're not gonna have a good time. And so going into it knowing that you don't like The Weeknd, it doesn't make sense to me. Next movie I have is The Monkey. And this is just Oz Perkins pumping out another good movie. Dude, he is a fucking workaholic. And I love him so much for that. This movie is absolutely absurd. And it follows a similar story beat to the Final Destination franchise. And I liked The Monkey a lot more initially. And then Final Destination Bloodlines came out. And it kind of made me like this one just a little less. Because I think that Bloodlines does it better. I feel like all of my opinions on this movie are the same. I just think that one is just so much better. It kind of made me feel a little more down on this one. And I try not to let other movies affect other movies. But this is like probably the only instance of that on this list. But it's still a good movie. It's still really fun. Rowan Campbell is in this. We have an actor doing double duty in this movie. All of the humor is really dry and just really fucking funny, and I love it so much for that. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about The Monkey. It's really, really absurd, and it's just a really, really fun time. Bone Lake is just a really, really fun time. It starts off as like a movie with some psychological warfare and sexual tension, and then towards the end, the last about 30 minutes, it just flings into a movie of just pure brutality, and it's really cool. The comedy also in this movie lands every single time. It's really, really just my kind of laughs. I think all of the actors are doing extremely well. But I'd like to specifically mention Maddie Hasson because she's the main character of this movie and she's doing an exceptional job. But she's also in Malignant, and I fucking love Malignant, and she's doing just as good a job there as she is here. I feel like the only thing in Bone Lake is I feel like we could have ramped up a little more of the brutality a little earlier. It feels like you can kind of feel the pacing. I think the movie does a really good job with its psychological warfare because it makes you think like a couple of different things about a couple of different characters. And you don't really know what to believe. You kind of just have to pick and choose, which is really cool. But I also think that the movie could have been a little more erotic. For an erotic thriller, it's just not really erotic, in my opinion. But it's still a really good time, really fun. That's why I have it rated here in the B tier. I don't have too much to say about the Toxic Avenger, except for a couple of things. It is pure camp. It is absolutely brutal. And 2 people walked out of my screening, and that is so funny to me. This is unironically one of my favorite Peter Dinklage performances. He's doing an incredible job as not only like this dad, but then also when he turns into the Toxic Avenger, he's just doing extremely well. I love Toxie. And it actually has something to say about the current state of medical finances in America today, which leads to this really heartbreaking storyline that is just really fucking sad to watch. But yeah, I don't really have too much to say. If you love that original movie, then you're really, really going to love this one a lot. I rarely ever have much to say about a Conjuring movie, and it's more of the same here. I don't really like the Conjureverse too much, but this one did a well enough job to keep me engaged and actually have me care. I like 1 and 2 a lot. I don't like 3. And this one I enjoyed quite a bit. The rest of the Conjureverse I don't really care for. But it was really, really sad to see that the Warrens, specifically Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, are no longer going to be in this franchise because they're so compelling to see on screen together. I think their chemistry is off the charts, and I love watching them act with each other. It's incredible. One of my favorite duos in horror specifically. I liked all the ghosts. I found them very terrifying. And there's a really, really heartbreaking suicide in this movie, and just overall the movie is incredibly spooky, and I loved it for that. Next on the list is Jurassic World Rebirth. I think it's another fun addition to the franchise, and it's got a really, really stellar cast with Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey, and Mahershala Ali. I think they're all doing incredible. I love all of the scary hybrid dinosaur creatures that I think are, I haven't read them, but are more faithful to the book or the books in this one. I love all of their designs, but specifically the D-Rex. It's incredible. I saw some people saying that they wish it had more screen time. I think it has just enough, or could even have less screen time. I think it honestly is shown a little too early in the movie. If we don't see in that cold open, and the first time we see it is during that helicopter scene towards the end, I think it would work even better. But I still like the direction that they went with the movie. The only thing that I don't really like too much is that the family just not do anything for me. They even get the T-Rex scene, and they just don't really do anything for me. I just don't really care about literally any of them. But yeah, just another really fun addition to Jurassic Park. Next in the B tier is Him, and this movie is so gorgeous and beautiful and fun. I love how chaotic and absurd this movie is, and it is so visually pleasing. I cannot get over how good this movie looks. It is incredible. I love the soundtrack of this movie. All of the music is fucking beautiful. The only downside, I think, is that there is 3 writers on this, so you can clearly tell there's a bunch of ideas that are just clashing together, and it's kind of the same situation as Shelby Oaks, except for this one looks so much better, and it's just a lot more engaging. Marlon Wayans is so compelling as a villain. Tyreek Withers is just being Tyreek Withers, which is awesome. All of the interactions between Cam and Isaiah just had me glued, and it's definitely worth a watch. It made me squeamish, it made me laugh, it made me wince, all of the above. And I think the final act of this movie, at least the last 15 minutes, is very much well earned in its brutality as well. And absolutely love this movie. That's why I have it rated as a B for the year. Bring It Back is a great use of body horror and like mouth horror. I'm desensitized to a lot of things, but when it comes to like mouth stuff, nose stuff, ear stuff, like eye things, needles, things like that, is where I get really squeamish, and it gets really, really hard for me to watch. This entire movie is mouth stuff, and it's so fucking hard to sit through and look at. It's an incredibly depressing movie. It is not a fun time. It is really, really hard to watch. It's another one of those stories similar to Talk to Me about grief, and it's just not a good time to sit through. It's generally like a really hard watch. One thing that I will say, though, specifically, is that there's times in this movie where we're watching a VHS tape, and it is so interesting to see what is going on in those tapes, and it really, really made me wish I was watching that movie instead of the movie that I am watching. And it's really upsetting because it's only like 5 minutes of the VHS tapes, and after I've seen that, I'm just constantly waiting for more, and I don't get any more of that, which is a little frustrating. But I still really, really like this movie. I don't think I liked it more than Talk to Me, but it's still really good. I'll probably never watch it again due to the themes and how fucking sad it is. And it is genuinely horrifying and grotesque. But I do have it rated down here at the B tier. Good Boy is so spooky, and it encapsulates the idea of fear and loss all from the perspective of a dog. And it is so compelling. Indy is one of the goodest boys ever. He is so interesting and easy to connect with. And I love seeing experimental movies like this. It is so cool to see what someone can do with a subgenre, and like especially like one like a paranormal or supernatural one like this, and just do something different with it. And I think changing perspectives is also just always really cool. They did it earlier in the year with Presence, what I'll talk about later, and then also in A Violent Nature last year, where we got an ambient slasher from the perspective of the killer instead. And they're all just so compelling to watch. Good Boy has some really great scares, and it has one moment of pure horror that's one of my favorites of the entire year, and it deals with Indy and this entity that it's fighting outside in the doghouse, and it's genuinely scary, and it's really hard to watch, and it's really cool. Indy doesn't speak for a majority of the film, but when he does, it's just gut-wrenching. Oh my god, it just gives me chills even thinking about it. It's really compelling. But overall, I was spooked and I was charmed. Reading here, it's like also just seeing that the behind the scenes after the movie and seeing how long it took them to make it. I think it took about 3 years. And just learning that Indy is not a trained acting dog. He's just that good at acting. And that a majority of the movie is just someone going like this behind a camera is really interesting to learn. But I do have it rated a little lower here in the B tier. And only because the experimental subgenre for me, I just have a bar for that's a little higher, because I like to see what someone can do next, and I think this is a really, really good step in that direction. But I think we could do more with it. And although I loved Good Boy, I want to see a little more, and I think we can get there. We're going to be moving on to the B+ tier now, starting with Silent Night, Deadly Night. Silent Night, Deadly Night is just so much fun. It's just, like I said earlier, just another dumb, fun slasher, but at its best. It's a really fun take on that original premise as well. We got a lot of callbacks to that original movie with like the bow and arrow, with the buck, with the and then all the toy store stuff. I loved all of the title cards and just Billy killing everyone. Billy's killing Nazis. Billy's killing bullies. Billy is just awesome. And I'm a really big fan of Rowan Campbell. And so I was so happy to hear about this movie and that he was playing the character of Billy, because I also love that character as well. Very compelling. Rowan Campbell does a really good job. And it's really funny to me that this is the second time that he's played a role where he's gotten this essence of evil from somebody, from physical touch. And the same thing happened, and then he dies in the end. And the same thing happened in Halloween Ends as well, which is really, really funny that he's played the exact same kind of trope twice, and it's that specific. But I absolutely adored this movie. And I love Rowan Campbell. I can't wait to see him in more things. And that's why I have him starting our B+ tier. Next movie I have is The Beldham. There is some really, really cool stuff in this movie. A lot of the visuals are really sweet to look at, and the low budget nature never really shines through, except for with the design of our villain. And even then, he looks great a majority of the time. It's very solidly acted and directed. And you can see and hear a lot of different influences come through seamlessly throughout the entire runtime as well. And it's got a really, really well done twist that just solidifies it as one of my favorite movies of the year. If you have the opportunity to watch this movie, or you can find it anywhere, please do. It's genuinely a treat. It's really sweet. I didn't really go too much into the plot because I want everyone else to go in blind just like I did. And it is incredible. Please give it a shot. Weapons is certainly an interesting watch. I watched this movie twice. And mainly because the first time I watched it, my expectations were so much different than what the actual movie was. But then also my theater experience really sucked. And so watching it again with different expectations and understanding what the movie was, and in a smaller audience, was great. And I loved it so much more that time. It gave us a terrifying villain in Aunt Gladys and some really enticing characters and a plot that kept me engaged the entire runtime. I think all of the actors, from Julia Gardner, to Josh Brolin, to Austin Abrams, are all doing an incredible job at connecting with me and keeping me engaged with the story. But the one that solidifies this is Kerry Christopher as Alex. He sells the entire movie for me. Without his convincing performance, I feel like the movie would fall apart. But because he is so convincing, he feels like the glue that holds this entire movie together. And he does such an incredible job. And he's so, like I said, convincing and so easy to root for. And I love it so much. Now, with all that being said, my expectations for the film versus what the film actually is were two completely different things. But number one, I only saw teasers for this movie. And so the only thing that I saw before going into it was just the kids running on the security camera. And that's what I assumed the movie would be about. But that's just a really good marketing job because it got me to sit down and got me to watch the movie. While I liked it, it just wasn't what I thought it would be. And that's not a bad thing at all. But one thing I did not like, though, is that it's almost too funny. There's so many sections of this movie that is just kind of broken with comedy that I feel like is unnecessary. I'm not a big fan of comedy in general. And so hearing it so often in moments where I feel like it shouldn't be just kind of derails me and makes me kind of pull away from the experience. And then lastly, I kind of have to talk about it, the gun. Regardless of what Zach Kreger has said about it, you cannot put a gun in a movie. At its base level, this movie is about kids in a classroom going missing. I feel like you can't put something like that there and not have an explanation for it. I feel like you can't talk about this movie without talking about it, so I had to talk about it. But regardless, I still really enjoyed the movie a lot, and that's why I have it rated as a B+ for the year. Overall, I loved a majority of Wolfman. Firstly, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I love everything about the style of this movie, and visually it's pleasing to my eyes. The cinematography is gorgeous, and it's specifically when we get to the Wolfman's perspective, it changes and it just looks so amazing. Also, the sound design is just incredible in this movie. I think about the scene with the spider a lot, and how it tricks you into thinking it's one thing and then it's not, and it's so incredible. This film also has one of my favorite cold opens for the movie. It gets you to sit down. It connects with you immediately. You get these characters. You learn that there's something in the woods, and you're set. And that's all you need to know. It gives you the bare minimum, and it's perfect. I was a really big fan that this entire movie is just the Wolfman transition, and that it leads to some really gnarly body horror. It leads to a really compelling story with the family. It's really neat watching a man descend into like animalistic behavior while he still has a family to take care of and protect. And it's really, really interesting. It also, I love the way it captured death and the act of dying or being deathly ill. And it was all just really heartbreaking to watch. The only few things that are keeping this movie from being rated any higher is that I think the Wolfman look just isn't really all there for me. I feel like with how gnarly it is, we could have gotten a really more grotesque looking Wolfman. But then also the pacing sometimes feels like it's dragging a little bit. There's a few moments where Julia Gardner like sees her husband as his wolf, and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna hurt you. Oh, but I'm not gonna hurt you. Oh, I'm gonna hurt you, but I'm not gonna hurt you. And it happens so often in like a short period of time, and you don't really want to feel pacing, and I kind of did in these moments. But I mean, other than that, I really, really love this movie. I don't think that's the consensus. I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed, but I absolutely adored this one. Presence was an exploration into the experimental subgenre that I absolutely adored. Its setup of we're going to tell a ghost story, but from the perspective of the ghost is so compelling, and it is so conceptually intriguing, just like I mentioned earlier with Good Boy. I always have wondered what films would look like from different perspectives, and I think this movie just knocks it out of the park. It doesn't even feel like we're watching a ghost haunt someone. It feels like we're watching a ghost observe somebody. A family, and it's really, really compelling to watch, and it's very immersive. And not only that, there's also just a really compelling family drama going on in the middle of this ghost story. There's a couple of twists that I found to be shocking, and specifically the final shot of the film that I believe were set up incredibly well. So this movie is also just so well made. There's a bunch of scenes where the ghost is interacting with the family, and how it's done, I have no idea, but it is so cool. It is like straight up fucking wizardry. It is so awesome. But overall, it's an incredibly rewarding rewatch and just a rewarding watch. And I think it's an incredible execution of a concept. And that's why I have it rated as a B+ for the year. The Carpenter's Son stars Nicolas Cage, who is the greatest actor of all time. The plot revolves around the infancy gospel of Thomas. It's a retelling of that story, which is a non-canonical gospel of the Bible. And it's really upsetting to me that it's non-canonical because it portrays Jesus when he was a child and him learning who he is and what he is. I feel like it's an incredibly interesting story of a person choosing their path in life. And I found this one to be incredible. Noah Jupe is playing a young Jesus, and he's doing exceptional. FKA Twigs is in this. She's doing really well. But specifically, this story of Jesus learning who he is feels like it should be canonical to me. It's just a story about someone finding themselves. And it's really interesting to me that Jesus is usually just depicted as another form of God. And in this story, it gives Jesus more autonomy. And it gives him a choice. Is he going to pick good or is he going to pick evil? Kind of like how Lucifer had that choice. Evil. And I loved the story. I loved how it was done. They did an incredible job. The visuals are great. I think the character of Satan is also just incredible in this movie. There's a specific shot in this that's also really sweet. We're looking through, I think, like a waterfall, and it pans into the gates of hell, and it is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's so visually pleasing. I think the only couple things I don't really like too much is there's some CG in it that's just doesn't really translate too well, but then also it's kind of hard to look at sometimes because it's so dark, but I don't really care because it's awesome, and it also has the greatest actor of all time, Nicolas Cage, in it, who, by the way, is the greatest actor of all time. But I absolutely adore The Carpenter's Son. I have the poster right there behind me because I love it so much. But I do have it rated as a B+ for the year. Together made me feel so uncomfortable, not only emotionally, but physically as well. It's an incredible concept and an absolute bizarre fest that I think is nailed, and they do an incredible job. I'm a sucker for relationship stories, and I was very, very much engaged with Alison Brie and Dave Franco in this movie. Now, there is one thing keeping this movie rated lower, and is how humor is used. Same thing with Weapons earlier. I found that there was just so many times in Together when a serious moment was just broken with comedy, and it just took me out of the experience so much. I always harken back to the Saw scene where they're merging together in this really fucking grotesque scene, and it's really, really intense, and then it goes silent for like all the music and everything just goes silent for a second just so they can make a quip. And like 3 seconds later, they're sitting apart and make more jokes. And it would have made so much more sense then, but it happens earlier in this really intense spot, and it just bothers me so much. I just like, I don't like when a movie leans into comedy that much, specifically when 90% of your movie is like really serious, and then you just come in with a comedy in spots where it just doesn't make sense to me. It just pulls me out a little bit. But other than that, and like some of the reveals, I really enjoyed it. But I personally didn't need a in-universe explanation for why these two are merging together. I feel like conceptually, two people needing to be with each other is more than enough reason to watch and see why they're combining with each other. But it didn't bother me too much on that aspect of the movie. But I do have it rated here as a B+ for the year. The last movie in our B tier is Jimmy and Stiggs. Jimmy and Stiggs is fucking beautiful. It is insane. It is awesome. It's so beautifully depraved. That's just handled with so much love and care, and I adore it. It's a pure vanity fest with an absolute absurd amount of blood and drugs and gore and derogatoriness and color, and it is so beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. The only thing I don't like about this movie really is just the dialogue. It's insufferable sometimes. If this film wasn't as fun as it is, I wouldn't forgive the dialogue for how like unbearable it is at times. But regardless, it's a perfect stoner movie that I need everyone to see at least twice. You got to be inebriated for one, and then you can watch it sober for one if you want to. But it's incredible. I love how the actor or the director is acting in it as well, and he like pretty much not destroyed, but he took his own apartment and just made it the set. And it's so cool to see that much commitment and to see your vision out there like that. And it's so awesome. And that's why I have it rated as a B+ for the year. All right, we're going to be moving on to the A tier now, starting with our A-. And we're going to begin with Dangerous Animals. Dangerous Animals is super fucking awesome. I love how sharks are being used as a weapon for a really more compelling villain. He's fucking terrifying. I love all of the VHS tapes in it and all the VHS stuff. He's just filming himself murder these people with sharks, and he has so many tapes, and it is so interesting to watch, and it makes me want to see what all the other tapes look like and what's on them. I think the suspense was done exceptionally well, fairly unpredictable into what's going on. I loved watching Zephyr. She's interesting enough to keep me engaged, and with her being that interesting, it just allows for the story to happen, and she's really easy to root for and care for, and I loved it a lot. I love the movie set on the water. It's got this really cool summer setting. Adored it. Absolutely adored it. Next movie is Keeper, and Oz Perkins is just Oz Perkining all over the place. He is incredible. One of my favorite directors. I love this relationship story. Just like same thing with like Together. Just these two people are really compelling to watch. I love seeing what's gonna happen next. I love all of the creature design and all the visuals in this movie. I love the set of this house. The house is so cool. I love the setting and it's like isolation horror, which is really sweet to watch. I honestly don't have too much to say. The ending reveal is really sweet. Like the movie is just so cool. I don't know how to explain it. I just liked it a lot. Like I don't like sometimes you just like something but you can't explain why. This is one of those times. I think Oz Perkins is generational talent. He is incredible. He has a vision, and he nails it on the head every single time. And I love his direction. There is so much to like about Predator Badlands. It's emotional, it's thrilling, sentimental, and surprisingly funny. I love all of the creature designs, and everything feels alive in this movie. They're on a planet where everything's trying to kill you, and it feels like that, which is really, really sweet. I love the relationship between Deck and Thea and how they work and combine their skills to help each other. I'm a big fan of the score and the sound design, and the overall look of the film is just beautiful. I love the choreography that's done. The only way I'd like this movie more if it wasn't as safe and PG as it is. But also I love that it's safe and PG because it feels like a family movie. And then it also just introduces a new audience, a younger audience, to not only the horror genre, but to this franchise as a whole. And I love that for this. This is one of a few Predator movies that I've been able to watch, and I can't wait to actually sit down and watch the entirety of the franchise. Eddington is another addition to Ari Aster's great filmography. I love how anxiety-filled it is and how tense it is. I think back to the one scene where the girl is yelling at the officer, and for like 2 minutes straight there's just music rising, things are happening, and it just feels like something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, but it gets you really pumping, and it's just, oh my god, it gets your blood boiling. It's so cool. And then also the scene where Joaquin Phoenix's character murders Pedro Pascal, and there was a collective gasp in my theater. We're in like a theater of like 40 people, and silent in there, and then as soon as that moment happens, just a collective, and it was such a cool experience to have with other people. But this is one of my not one of my favorite Ari Aster movies, but it's certainly still a great movie. That's why I have it as an A- for the year. Final Destination Bloodlines was just so much fun. I love the premonition scene. I loved the absurdity of just this franchise itself, the absurdity of this movie. I loved how we got more lore and explanations for what's going on. I loved all of the characters were interesting to watch and to see die. It was really cool. We got some really interesting ways to kill people in this movie as well. I mean, a fucking train derails, tumbles through a neighborhood, and kills 2 specific people. It was really cool. The MRI kill, the trash compactor, everything. Oh my God. It was so cool. But the one thing specifically, it's Tony Todd's final performance, and it's really, really sad that a legend like Tony Todd passed away. I love him so much. One of my favorite actors of all time. I love what he's done for the genre and for film. And I've never met the person, but he always seemed like just a genuine person. And I'm gonna miss seeing him on screen. Absolutely. RIP to Mr. Tony Todd. But I do have Final Destination Bloodlines ranked as a A- for the year. So I absolutely adored Ash. And I have a whole piece for it that I'm just going to read for you. I absolutely adored Ash. I am mostly a vanity guy, and so if you can impress me visually or stylistically, I'll more than likely enjoy it. Ash is pure vanity. It's one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen, and sure, the plot is fairly cookie cutter, but the visuals, like, just straight up, there were so many times I found my mouth just open and agape due to the sheer brilliance that's on the screen. And also the soundtrack is meditative and like just pure ecstasy. I enjoy a non-linear story, and although that style can give away everything, I didn't mind it too much here. I like finding out why a specific thing happens here or there and figuring out how we got there in the first place. I love the design of the aliens, and there's a scene where it bursts out of Aaron Paul's head, and it reminded me of the Thing dog so much. It's fucking heavenly. I also like the world that this movie is built, and I felt for some of the characters enough to keep me engaged. All of the gore and all of the kills were impressive, and they were fucking awesome. And I love all of the technology that exists in this world, and also just where it takes place. Everything on the visual side is just so impressive to me, and I really, really need to check out more of Flying Lotus's work. Overall, it's atmospheric. It's hypnotizing and just so alluring, and I adore this movie so much, and that's why I have it rated as an A- for the year. The next movie I have is The Woman in the Yard. Firstly, the cast is incredible. They feel like a real family. They're all convincing. There's from the mother to the son to the daughter, even to the father that's not on screen very much. but he adds to the story, and they're all just so compelling and interesting and engaging. This film deals with a lot of themes of depression and suicide and how they can manifest and how those kind of ideations fester. And it's not a fun watch, not even close to fun. It is incredibly depressing to sit through, and it's not a fun time, but it is a great film. And I think more films about this kind of topic need to exist. I think it's an important medium, and it's important to share thoughts and opinions and also share your different ways of thinking about these specific things. And this movie does an incredible job of getting that across to its audience. I love the film style and cinematography, and how it uses shadows and mirrors and separations in frames to depict its story. I'll give one example for shadows. There's a scene where the mother is walking down the stairs, but only the shadow is appearing for like the first 5 to 7 seconds. And it feels like that's who we're watching, and that the mother is just kind of being dragged along, and that she's not really there. It's almost like she's the shadow herself. And then also, like, for separation, there's a specific scene where one character is on one side of the screen and the other's on the other side of the screen. And you can just not only see the separation and how they're feeling, but you can feel it in what they're saying and how it's being portrayed on the screen. And it's incredible. The only thing keeping this movie down a little bit for me is how the ending can be interpreted, because it's one of two ways. It's either that, from what I've gotten from my viewings, is that one, it's either that the mother overcame her manifestations. She overcame this woman in the yard, and that she's going to be there for her children, or that she killed herself and that she succumbs to it. And I think that I can view it in either way that I want to, and I don't know if I don't like that. I don't like the message of if something's too hard, give up. And in this case, it's if life gets too hard, kill yourself. I don't like that sentiment, and so that's not how I'm going to interpret it. But just overall, really not a fun watch, but it's a really, really rewarding watch. Not only just for listening and watching this person's themes, this director and writer's themes, but also just for the style and cinematography. This is one of the best Blumhouse movies I think I've ever seen. I feel like I'm on the other side of the spectrum from the overall consensus, because I'm pretty sure a majority of the audience does not like this movie. But I love this movie a lot, actually. Moving on, we have The Surfer. The Surfer includes also the greatest actor of all time, Nicolas Cage, who, by the way, is the greatest actor of all time. This movie is absolutely gorgeous. It has so many vibrant colors. I'm thinking during the day, you get these gorgeous oranges and blues and reds and yellows, but then at night we have these gorgeous greens and more blues. It's very intriguing to look at. It's also got this very glossy score. The only way I've been able to describe the sound of the score is that the score sounds like the way the sun looks as it's reflecting off of the waves and water during a sunrise or sunset. That is the way that the score sounds, and it's incredible. This movie's also very hypnotic. There's lots of zoom-ins, and then there's also lots of wide shots. But the wide shots zoom in as well. It's like it doesn't give you a chance to get away from anything. Even when you're far away, it still finds a way to pull you in, and it's really cool. Very, very in your face. I love that it takes place during the day. Most scary things happen at night. And so it gives you this sense of hope and security when, even though the entire movie is none of that. This movie beats you over the head the entire fucking time, and it's incredible. There's also like a couple minute long psychedelic trip scene in this, and I love different interpretations of how psychedelics look and are used, and I love this version of it. And then also I love this small little surfer cult. They are very local, very antagonizing, and just straight up bullies. There is literally no sense of safety. They do not leave Nicolas Cage alone once who's the greatest actor of all time, in the entire movie. And straight up, if you don't their moniker, if you don't live here, don't surf here. And if you surf here, they're going to beat the shit out of you. And they do. And they're such assholes, and they're so fun to hate. I love this movie to a T. There's not much I think it could do better, and it does everything great. I loved it a lot. Black Phone 2 absolutely rocks. It felt like a spiritual successor to Nightmare on Elm Street, and I loved it. It was so fucking cool. I remember watching the movie just thinking it gives me Nightmare vibes, and then I scroll on Letterboxd after I'm done watching. I'm like, Nightmare. And I'm like, oh, cool. Everyone else thought the same thing. And yeah, it's fucking crazy. The Grabber is still super scary, if not scarier than the first movie. He gives some really chilling lines and really chilling reveals. I loved all of the dream vignettes. They were super beautiful. And just stylistically, this movie fucks so incredibly hard. It's got an amazing score. It's one of those scores that's piercing, that kind of just fucking digs into you. It's really cool. And then I also love Mason Thames and Ethan Hawke in these movies, but Madeline McGraw is just on a fucking other level. She is incredible, which is insane because Ethan Hawke is Ethan Hawke. And I just feel like she's just doing so good in these movies. And just like I said about Micah Monroe earlier, I need Madeline McGraw in more movies, just please. There's something about the MMs, man. Madeline McGraw is incredible. Micah Monroe is incredible, and I just need them both in more movies. But overall, I think Black Phone 2 is an incredible addition to that initial movie. I'm not sure if I like it more, but it's very, very close because they're both phenomenal. Next, I have Strange Harvest, and this might be my sleeper pick for one of the best films that came out this year. It's incredibly grisly and violent and does not shy away from showing you either. It is very convincing, and it's very grounded. And I could have easily watched for another 30 to 45 minutes. This movie's only 90 minutes long, and I feel like it could have been longer, and I would have been perfectly okay with that. The acting doesn't feel like acting, just like a mockumentary should feel. And so it feels like I'm actually watching real people talk about a real life thing in serial killer who was alive and large. Mr. Shiny feels like a real serial killer, and he's fucking terrifying. Also, there's a fucking blood eagle in this movie, a real fucking blood eagle, and it is so cool. Oh my god, I think the only other movie I've seen one in is Midsommar, but you see it all in this movie. You only see a glimpse of it in Midsommar. Now you see the whole fucking thing in this movie, and it's so gross, and it's awesome. The only thing that is holding this down from being higher than an A tier that it's already in is that the ending can feel a bit fantastical. But because of all of the setup we get during the movie, it works, and I don't really mind it all that much. But because of what the fantastical stuff is, I'm not really a big fan of, but the setup is what makes me like appreciate it. But I was shocked, I was sufficiently spooked, and just overall, I was disturbed and horrified, and I loved the entire thing. 28 Years Later was absolutely phenomenal. All of the filmmaking and cinematography just straight up being, number one, being done on iPhones, impressive, but just in general, just absolutely beautiful and incredible. And it also has the best trailer I've ever seen in my entire life. It might be the greatest trailer of all time. I loved the 3-act structure of this movie, with Act 1 being the father-son dynamic, Act 2 being the mother-son dynamic, but then Act 3 being all about the doctor. I found every single one of them to be compelling in their own ways, while also being different enough to keep me engaged and wanting more. And it was absolutely phenomenal and incredible. Alfie Williams as Spike, just like Alex in Weapons, sells this entire story. If you have any worse child actor, this movie just doesn't work as well as it does. But because Alfie is such a good actor, it works, and he is just incredible. I have such high hopes for him as an actor in his career. I think the only thing about this movie that unfortunately is the only thing being talked about is the ending and how it's a bit goofy, but I couldn't care any less about how goofy it is because of how excited it makes me for Bone Temple. And that one comes out in a few short weeks, and it looks incredible, and just like this one does. And yeah, even though the ending can seem a bit goofy, it still has me excited, and I don't mind its placement there at all because it's only 30 seconds long. And maybe a little longer than 30 seconds, but it works for me, and it's awesome. I also love that Jack O'Connell is in this, and he's going to be in the next one because he is an incredible actor as well. I don't have much else to say other than I fucking love this movie, and that I have 28 years later rated as an A+ for the year. The Long Walk left me emotional both times seeing it. I was attached to so many characters, and knowing that all but one of them had to die is such a grueling and like dreadful feeling the entire time you're watching the movie. And I love that the premise of this is just a way to get all of these characters and kids in one spot just to interact with each other, because the entire movie is character work and just them talking to each other, and it is so compelling, and every single one of them is so individually different, and they all bring something different to the table. I love watching them act. The violence is minimal in this movie, but when it hits, it fucking hits, and it is just so impactful. Every single gunshot is meaningful, and it is so raw, and specifically that first one, my God, it's just so in your face. Once that first shot is fired, it's not just a wake-up call to the actors and to the characters, it's a wake-up call to the audience. Like, hey, this is real. And the placement of the title card got my blood pumping. And it's just like McVree says in the film. Once that hits, it's walk or die. And there's no other choice. You're going to sit here and watch them all walk and them all die. And I absolutely loved it. David Johnson is a star. Love them in Alien Romulus. He's breakout performance here. I think he is absolutely incredible. Everyone else is also incredible in this movie, but him specifically, he's just so, oh my God, he's so inspirational, and so he's just incredible. And I would love to see him in more things. And that's why I have it rated as an A+ for the year. The Ugly Stepsister was absolutely fantastic. Everything about this was just so fascinating. It was receiving some comparisons to The Substance when it first came out, and I couldn't agree anymore. They both deal with ideas of ridiculous beauty standards for women in a grotesque but also beautifully gruesome way. In this film, there's so much to like, whether it be the set design, just the characters themselves, all of the body horror and just horror in general. Everything is stunning. There's lots of scenes with food and mouth stuff, and I mentioned it earlier with Bring Her Back. It's so hard for me to watch that kind of stuff, and that's just what that's just kind of what this movie is. It just makes me so squeamish to even think about. And then obviously, the tapeworms and maggots don't help me either. It's so fucking gross, and I love it. I loved it so much. I love the Cinderella story just in general, and seeing it from a different perspective is really cool. And I love how I feel for every single character because of the perspective I'm given. There's a different feeling for every single one of those original characters. I love how they all make me feel differently, and it's great, and it's awesome, and I love it a lot, and that's why I have it rated as an A+ for the year. Now, we're going to be moving on to my top 3 horror movies for the year. That bronze trophy is going to be going to Frankenstein, rated as an S tier. Frankenstein is perfect. It's Guillermo del Toro at its best, and this film is incredible. Number one, the visuals. It's visually pleasing. It's stylistically impeccable. All of the sets are incredible, and it is just gorgeous. Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth are all being incredible. I love Oscar Isaac's take on Victor Frankenstein. I love Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster, and then also Mia Goth is just doing double duty again. I was just talking about X with one of my work friends the other day, and she's incredible in that. She's incredible in this. I love the 2-act structure of this movie, with Act 1 being Victor Frankenstein's portion and then Act 2 being Frankenstein's monster's portion. I do like Act 1 slightly more because I think Oscar Isaac is just so compelling as Victor Frankenstein. He's so easy to root for, but then also just so easy to hate. And Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster makes the monster so easy to root for and care for. But overall, I adore this movie, and I love Frankenstein a lot, and so that's why I have it rated as a S tier, and it's taking home the bronze trophy for me. So for my number 2 spot this year is Begonia. Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone might be my favorite actor duo of all time. They are absolutely unbelievable in this movie. They are straight up just acting at each other and competing the entire time. Jesse Plemons is acting his ass off while Emma Stone is acting her ass off, and the entire time it's just them saying to each other, I'm going to act better than you, and you're just going to have to like it. And the entire time they're just so compelling to watch. Both of their characters are engaging, and I just constantly want to know what they're doing next and what their conversation is going to be about. But then also I want to shout out Aidan Delbus as Dan. He plays the third main character, and he just gives a really compelling performance, and it ends with one of the most sad and, oh my God, heartbreaking moments in like horror. It's just so incredible. The score is also just one of a kind. It's another one of those piercing scores, and it's just so incredible. But then also silence is used as a score itself in the film as well. And sometimes the silence is even more impactful than the score is. And I love when that is used, especially when it's used so well. This movie is very unpredictable, and it makes it a super fun but really tense watch because you just don't know what's going to happen. And there's not one moment of this movie where I predicted where it would go, and I love that a lot. I love the direction Yorgos went for this time. Him being one of my favorite filmmakers in recent memory, he's just doing incredible things with this. He knows what he wants, and he gets his actors to give it to him, and they know exactly what he wants, and they give it to him, and it is great. One thing, the ending can seem a bit goofy. Same thing with 28 Years Later, but I feel like in this movie, it is absolutely earned. I love it so much. I just love this movie so much, and it's easily one of my favorites for the year, and that's why I have it at number 2. And of course, my favorite movie, the best horror movie of the year, without a doubt, number 1 is Sinners. I could go on and on and on about Sinners. I watched it 6 times, 4 times in IMAX. I cannot get enough of this movie. I'm going to go down the line. So number 1, pacing. It's Act 1 versus Act 2. The entire first hour of the movie is set up. It's just the Smokestack twins collecting all of these characters and getting them in one place. But what I love about it so much is how different every single character is, and none of them feel like caricatures. None of them feel like just throwaways. Every single character, you get a compelling introduction, and they're their own person. They have their own autonomy. They have their own reasons for wanting to help the twins. I love it so much. Like, the entire first hour of the movie, like I said, is just them going and collecting people, whether it be Cornbread or whether it be Delta Slim or even just Sammy himself. Every single character they go and grab is just so compelling, and then their own person, and I love it. Even Smoke and Stack themselves, they're twins, but they're clearly 2 different people, and it is incredible. And then we get to Act 2, and we get to more of the horror, and we're introduced to Remick and his little posse of people. And Remick is incredible, and his little posse of people are incredible, and I love their introduction. I love everything about all of these characters, and all of their performances are so good. I could see literally anybody winning an award for any of their roles in this movie, and it would make sense. The music in this movie is incredible. Every single song gives me chills every single time I listen to it. Every single song is just beautiful. And then finally, Ryan Coogler knows exactly what he wants, and he gets it from everybody. Every single person knows what he wants, and they give it their all. All of the direction is incredible. All of the sets are great, specifically the juke joint. Oh my God, I love so much of this. I could go on for days about this movie. I'll go on about some of my favorite scenes. One of my favorite scenes of just in general, I think in movie history, is when Sammy is singing I Lied to You. That entire 6 minutes of him just singing his ass off and him literally burning the house down is incredible. Like, that whole scene is so good. And then I love specifically the direction and the editing of when he finally hits that final note. He raises his hand, the camera pans to the sky as the fire and the ash is going, and it turns into stars, and then the camera pans back down, and we see that the entire juke joint has burned down, but he's still just playing, and everyone's still just dancing. You see Cornbread at the front door, still watching guard, as we're just peeking into what's going on in the juke joint, and then it finally comes back, and we get the introduction to Remick. And he sees Sammy for the first time. He hears Sammy's music for the first time. And it's this gorgeous introduction as he walks towards the juke joint. And we flow into Act 2. And it is just absolutely beautiful. Rocky Road to Dublin is incredible. Last Time I Seen the Sun is incredible. I love Michael B. Jordan's performance as both Smoke and Stack. I love this version of vampires. I love, oh my God, I could go on for days. But let me wrap it up with just that Sinners is incredible. Sinners is a once in a lifetime movie. I'm so glad I got to watch it as many times as I could in IMAX before it re-releases again, probably in a few years. The pacing of this movie is incredible. There's not one moment of time. I've like I said, I've seen it 6 times, and there's not one moment I can think of where it's like, oh, well, you know what? I'll get on my phone for this, or you know what? I'll skip through this and get to the next part. None of it is worth skipping because it's all just so engaging and incredible. Oh my God. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff about it, but I fucking absolutely adore this movie, and that's why it takes home my number 1 for the year. And with that, we conclude our discussion about 2025's Horror Reel Roundup. On the screen here is the complete ranking for the year. Some films are, of course, subject to change. But as of today, as of right now, this is the ranking that I have. I'd love to discuss more with you, so drop a comment on anything that happened in the video, whether it be what I said, where I ranked it, or anything that you want to add to the conversation. I would love to read about it and respond to you with some more conversation. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to me just talk about horror movies for however long this is, probably an hour or so. And join me next month for our first monthly Reel Roundup, where I discuss all of the horror movies that released in January of 2026. Those films will include Primate, Send Help, Iron Lung, 28 years later, Bone Temple, and I believe Return to Silent Hill is also releasing in January. And going forward, the Horror Reel Roundup will follow the format that is used during that video. And I also have a short film releasing in early 2026. We're supposed to be filming very soon, and I'm very happy about it. I'm very excited, and I'll keep you posted as that progression goes along. But until then, thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. This has been Justin King's 2025 Horror Reel Roundup.